Hi guys, and welcome back to Let's Fish 101. Today we're going to go over glide bait fishing. So glide bait fishing is really fun to do when you really want to slow down your presentation. And so right here we got a Savage Gear Shine Glide. It is a one jointed glide bait. And so first we'll go over a few different ways of fishing these. So the first one is really simple. Just cast it out, and you can either reel it slow. So you get that little S, or you can kind of burn it so it almost turns into that was a little bit of a burnout, but you can almost do it so it almost acts as a wake bait. But you can do this as slow or fast as you want. Super slow for that little almost chop, or you can just have it go really fast and kind of make it a fleeing bait fish. So that is the first one, the most simple. The next one I kind of like to do is you do tiny reel turns, but you twitch the entire rod, so you get that very tight chop motion. So the bait, you can see right here as it's coming in, it's just doing a really, really tight chop. And I know it was kind of sloppy right there, but I'll show you again right here. Very, very tight action compared to the straight reel, where it was a little bit more wide and out like that. And then the third one we'll do, so we saw the straight retrieve and then the twitching of the rod with little reel turns. But now, instead of twitching the rod, we'll do only reel turns. So what you want to do is just throw it out there like usual, and instead of moving the rod at all, you'll do not even quarter turns, probably about quarter turns, and it will basically do the same thing as when you were twitching it. But sometimes the big swim bait guys, like who will be throwing the 3 to 6 really up. I mean, some swim baits get absolutely ginormous, but they will be doing that for the heavier baits. Since this is a lighter bait, I can kind of get away with doing the chops like with the whole rod there. And because when you just use the reel, it will take away from like the heaviness of your lure. And so there is the Savage Gear Shine Glide. But not every bait is double jointed. Like this one right here, the Weston Swim, is, as you can see, all one piece. It doesn't really matter what kind of technique you use, because this is basically the same thing. You can do the reel turn, you can do the twitch. This one is a bit more tight, and it really depends on what kind of glide bait you buy. There are some that will, when you twitch it, you want to do a slower twitch and they'll glide really wide. Or sometimes you buy one and you twitch it faster and the twitches are very choppy, like this one would be. Very tight, very like 2-inch chops at best. So it doesn't really matter what you go for. These baits will mainly, most of them work the same way, and you can work all the same way, but different baits will have different actions. Some may work wide and have really long strides. Some might just have a nice little chop action to them. It just depends what you buy. But then you have the ones that you'll pay a bit more money for. And this one is about a $50 depths bull shooter. And this one is, as you can see, very real life bluegill. And so like this one, I can chop like this. And if you, I normally like throwing baits that are very bright so I can trace them, so I can see them in the water if I throw them 30 yards out. It's just my preference, but if I throw them 30 yards out, I can see how they're working and if I got hung up on the line or whatever. But this expensive one has a little white head on it to show me that's going to be tracing my lure, even though the whole lure, except that top part, is bluegill colored. So I'll show you here. Throw that out. And even though you can't see it very well, I can see the little white tracer on it. And I just did a simple retrieve on that. It really, I mean, you'll just have to kind of do your research on what kind of glide bait you want. And if you want to look up wide glide baits, look that up on Google, look it up on tacklewarehouse.com. Anywhere you'll find what you want. Wide glide baits, choppy glide baits, you can find anything. So now we're kind of going to go over, so we went over most of the baits, the single joint, the expensive ones that you can get if you want, and then the single joint, the expensive, and the solid body. So I'd be throwing these baits. I mean, I could get away with some of these on a medium heavy, but I will like to throw these on a heavy rod, just so, just if I want to go bigger on my bait, I can. And this thing can take quite a bit. You can see by the rod bend, it's a heavy rod. So some big swim bait guys, if you do want to get into the bigger swim baits, let's say like 3 ounce, 4 ounce, 5 ounce and up, those guys will be throwing them on certified and made for swim bait rods, which can take those 2 and up ounce baits. So that's what they'll be throwing. And I do have a musky rod. Since we are in Minnesota, I use a musky rod, which is about 8 feet, which is about what you would want. So 8 feet, 8 foot musky rod in mine would be my swim bait rod, so I don't have to go out and buy a swim bait rod. Since I'm going to be musky fishing and swim bait fishing with it, it crosses over in both ways. So I do have some baits that are in the 3 to 4 ounce classification, I guess you would say, and I would throw those on my 8 foot small musky rod, 8 footer. And then everything else, I mean, this is really not much. 34 grams, this is a 34 grams, that's, I don't know off the top of my head, but everything I showed you today can be thrown on a medium heavy to heavy rod. I would suggest a heavy. So I hope you guys go out and start swim bait fishing, because it is very fun, and it's a very slow way of fishing. You can get, if you see a lethargic fish and you throw a swim bait up by them, some baits will work past them way too fast. With a glide bait, you can work nice and slow or very choppy by them, and you might get them to strike because you're in their face a bit longer. So I hope you guys learned a bit from this video, and I appreciate the view. I hope you guys subscribe. And if you guys got more ideas of what you want to see on this channel, comment that down below. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Tight lines.